Good morning and welcome to Our Chicago. I'm Mark Rivera. We continue our countdown to the start of what is sure to be a historic Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, with Vice President Kamala Harris as the first Black and Asian American woman to lead a major party ticket. And here to talk more about what to expect in the week ahead is ABC 7 political analyst Laura Washington and E.J. Fagan, assistant professor of political science at the University of Illinois Chicago. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Very, very big week ahead, of course. This convention is different than most because Vice President Harris has already been nominated through an online roll call. So what can we expect to happen at the UC this week as Vice President Harris is coming? It's expected to be in Chicago tomorrow.
Well, it's going to be a showcase. It's going to be a showcase of the issues that they want to put forward, and a showcase of their candidates, particularly Kamala Harris. Every night you're going to see a different theme that they're going to roll out with speakers to match that theme. And then you're also going to see a lot of attention paid to her background, Kamala Harris, to her background, to her bio, because people frankly don't know that much about her. She was elected 4 years ago as vice president. But if they remembered back that far, I'd be surprised. And she's been in the shadows of Joe Biden, so sure. They know they have a short amount of time to be able to put her story out there, so they're going to spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah,
okay.
Opinions are more malleable right now. I mean, if they're not solidified, she hasn't been in office for 4 years, she hasn't had a long campaign, and so it's really a unique opportunity for a candidate to define themselves.
So I know that the campaign says that there will be some celebrities as well joining at various events, not just at United Center, but at other events in the city as well. Is that celebrity star power? Past and former presidents as well will be involved. I know President Biden speaking tomorrow, President Obama, President Bill Clinton potentially as well, will all be in town at the convention. Is that kind of star power and political power going to help in this way for the Harris-Walz campaign?
I think those types of leaders that are respected in the minds of voters and are political leaders, that's more powerful. I think Democrat conventions always have celebrities. Katy Perry performed at the 2016 convention, and those are fun. Hulk Hogan was at the Republican convention. I don't think in the long run they mean very much.
Well, I would disagree a little bit in the sense that they grab media attention, and this is the biggest free media opportunity that any candidate is going to have in the campaign. So I think that they want to glamour everything up. And think about George Clooney. Remember, George Clooney was the guy that came out, the actor, came out and said publicly, wrote an op-ed saying that Biden was not ready to run for re-election. That got an incredible amount of attention, not because George Clooney was a smart politician or someone in government, because he was George Clooney. So I think they're going to be looking for opportunities like that where they can really make a splash.
And when you think about the protests as well, we've got one today that's supposed to be happening around 5 p.m. and there are, routes that are established for protests in the coming days. How big of a deal do you think that's going to be in terms of the ability for police to handle that and to allow protesters to express their right to free speech?
Chicago has some ghosts, and so if something does happen, I think 1968, that topic is going to come up. It really will depend on how the police treat the protesters, how the protesters themselves react, and how much of that's a news story. I don't think it's much of a news story if something big doesn't happen, if there's not something some sort of violence or whatever. That's kind of how protests work. There's going to be protests at every convention.
Yeah, and yes, we had 1968, but we also had 1996, there was a lot of angst and anxiety over how that would go because it was much closer to 68. That went beautifully, it went fine. I think they learned a lot of lessons from that in terms of how to handle crowds. The one thing I'm wondering about is how well the neighborhoods will be covered. Every place that's not downtown, they're going to have a tremendous amount of police presence downtown, as they should, but are the other neighborhoods going to be neglected, and is there going to be possibility for problems because they just don't have, Chicago Police Department is way understaffed. Are they going to have enough to cover the whole city? And
I know the superintendent just deputized 300 other police officers from Milwaukee and across the state to come and help. So those numbers, they are realizing, right, that the numbers are necessary. Chicago, obviously a long history of hosting conventions. How does this benefit the city if it goes well? And if there are problems, how conversely could that affect the city?
EJ?
Lots of full hotel rooms, lots of full restaurants. And if something goes wrong, every camera in the country is going to be on us. This is a beautiful city, and I think a lot of people had wrong opinions about the city of Chicago, and it's our chance to fix those.
The motto from 1968 was "The whole world is watching." The whole world will be watching again, and there's a lot at stake, particularly for the political leaders, particularly for Governor Pritzker and for Mayor Johnson, because they're in charge, particularly the mayor, of making sure that things go right. And they both have very high political ambitions, particularly Pritzker. He wants to run for president someday. So if things don't go well, that could be a huge problem for their future political careers.
Okay, very big week ahead, of course.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.